thought in terms of exit strategy began a long time ago with my commitment to pouring into as many people as I possibly can. One of my personal goals is to be an asset to everyone I meet, whether I just open the door for you or smile at you. But when it comes to my businesses, identifying people that I can pour into and then finding where they can actually run the businesses in my absence so that then I can feel comfortable with leaving something so that I can live on beyond this body. So my idea is to invest and pour into a lot of people, and I do that with all of my businesses, whether they're teens or volunteers. Some run out of oxygen and I don't see them anymore, and then there's a couple that hang around that look like they can be part of that succession.
Awesome, awesome. There was a statistic that says that there are more people over the age of 60 than under the age of 15. That tells me that the baby boomers that you're referring to are extending their life, and as a result of extending their life, they also have to think differently about this term retirement. I jokingly say you should never retire, ever. And if you do, just think of the word a car, putting new tires on it, retiring your body and driving on. Because as you age, you will be smarter than you've ever been. You'll have more money than you've ever had. You'll be emancipated, meaning the children are gone. And you have ideas. You have a lot of ideas. You have thoughts. You have things that you want to do. And as a result of that, we should probably take that retirement or even exit concept out of our vocabulary. And we should be more proactive with what our future will present. We talk about healthcare with the emergence of 3D printing. Most of your organs in the future will be reproduced. They'll take your DNA and they'll change it out. Most of us die because one of our organs goes bad or fails. But with the future, those things will be easily replaced. So now you're looking at 120, 130, and maybe even 150-year-old people. Well, what are they going to need? They're still going to need to live someplace. They're going to have to consume food, and they're going to have to be entertained. I mean, so there are certain things that robotics won't be able to substitute for what the human can do. But I don't want to get into that, because if I go too deep into calling everybody part robots and part human, and we started getting into the cyber concept, and your frontal lobe having control and your back lobe won't, because you'll have a nanochip in the back providing you with infinite data, and then someday there's going to be a brain hacker who's going to change your life. But like I said, I don't want to scare you, but nevertheless, there may be anything but an exit when that occurs. Thank you.
So let me take exit out of the vernacular just for argument's sake. And let's acknowledge that we are living longer lives because of people like Wendy. We're going to see life expectancies beyond anything we've imagined. But what I see boomers wrestling with is, especially those who have no children positioned to take over their business, is they don't know what to do. I bought 3 companies from boomers who had nowhere else to go but the market to find a seller, hoping that there was a seller who could honor what they poured into the business. And in the absence of that, they're in a lurch. So I really want to hear, so acknowledge, but what's the exit strategy, whether it's 150 years old or 100 years old? What are you going to do? Or at least, where do you think you're going to do?
Yeah, mic check one. Yeah, when I think exit strategy, I'm thinking financial, right? So what is your exit strategy after an investment? You're looking for that to mature. And when it comes to maturity, then you're able to cash out some return on that investment. So when I look at exit strategy from a legacy standpoint, I think there's 2 things that you have to focus on. Number 1, you're looking at breeding a capable individual whom you've invested into, specifically that of your seed, someone who has your blood, right? And I think that's the challenge you're talking about now in terms of baby boomers.
That's right. That's right.
I also saw somewhere where only 16% of black businesses would actually leave their business to their offspring. And that's a high number. So this is one of the things that attracted me to the conference here, is that I didn't see a lot of Gen Xers. And I was concerned that such an amazing environment would not be able to toggle over to the next generation. So I wanted to do my part to make sure that I was mentored, even though I'm not the blood son of a special individual like Dr. George C. Fraser. I could adapt his mentality, I can adapt his philosophy, and then be able to mentor others. So number one, the exit strategy for me personally is I started this with my kids, my 2 sons. One of my sons wanted to be a basketball player. I said, well, son, if you got to do that, you got to, from the time you hit high school, you got to be phenomenal, right? If you're phenomenal, then you got a good chance. Now you got to go to college. You got to get into D1, maybe a D2, but D1. He didn't do none of that. Now, I knew the guy is a people guy. I had already envisioned for him that he would go into sports and entertainment management. Last week, he calls me and he says, Dad, you know, I'm grieving because I messed up my basketball opportunity. And he said, I think I'm going to go into, right? I'm going to go into sports management. So he has a good friend, one of the first female, someone that he knows, female into the WNBA. And so she wants him to manage her social media ops, which is opportunities, right, to make money. So he tells me, he said, Dad, I want to do that. I said, well, I told you that many years ago. So my exit strategy was to really invest in them, and now I'm seeing the return on that investment coming through so that my business has able people to actually run it to take it to the next level. That's my exit strategy.
Awesome, awesome. So, great responses, and I'm learning, folks, and I'm still working through, as I told you before, what my direction is going to be for my business. And I'm looking at this panel to help counsel me. So another thing I'm wrestling with, I'm going to describe this as Earl Graves versus Bob Johnson. That's how I'm going to frame it. I want you all to weigh in on this. Now, Earl Graves was on the record. I'm not selling my business. In fact, he said, I ain't selling to no white folks. I'm not selling my business. That's what he said. And he didn't. He passed it on to his sons. To your point a moment ago, Butch now runs Black Enterprise. By comparison, Bob Johnson was very clear. BET, which he founded, Black Entertainment Television, is simply an asset. I will sell it if I can get a good dollar for it, and that's exactly what he did. He sold it to Viacom, and black people vilified Bob Johnson when he sold BET. I see some head shaking. They said, how could you give up what was the only black-owned media channel outside of Radio 1, which became TV 1, and sell it to Viacom, which was white-owned? And so now Bob Johnson ended up becoming a billionaire, ended up buying hotels like Dr. Roberts, had an equity firm, Johnson Equity Vista Partners, something like that. He's made investments in hotels. Charlotte Bobcats, owner or part owner. So he's actually done better than Earl Graves. But he gave up the asset. So I want you all to weigh in. Bob Johnson, sell it for the highest bidder. Earl Graves, pass it on to the family and let that legacy continue. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. I just want some advice.
I'll set it off. Good question. I'm gonna start with what you said before in terms of the legacy, passing the business to the family, right? That's where we're at. We wanted to kind of figure out what that exit strategy looked like. The ideal world back in the days of Leave It to Beaver and all that, Father Knows Best, it was ideal to be able to say that from the father, we pass this on to the son and carry on the business, and then that would kind of represent what my fraternity brother Earl Graves did, right? And passing that on, I get that.
Make it sci-fi.
All day. What we have here is we live in capitalism. And in a capitalist, I want to have a capitalistic mindset of what are my options, so I can go the route of Earl Graves and what he did, or a strategy play, and I would side with Bob Johnson to say, build your portfolio and sell it. I think Mr. Roberts will add to the fact that, you know, in my personal walk, I've built businesses. The first time I built in the ringtone space, I went the route of the Earl Greys. And when I was told you should sell this, sell it while it's hot, you'll be 7 million 8 years ago. You would have already been that. Right? There was a lesson that was learned in there. And so I got way familiar with what an exit strategy is. I started to understand, hey, I could build a business and sell it. That became the name of the game for me. Build a business and sell it. Meanwhile, in this same journey, my son is exposed to everything. He will see everything that goes on. He's had the privilege of talking to Dr. Fraser and many other titans out there. Well, he then will grow up to be able to make a sound decision. So it won't be the case of, does he take over digital mindset? I'd love him to do that. That's what every father, every parent would want them to do that. But I also want to make sure that he has options and understand what those options are. So the Bob Johnson route, I'm with that.
Okay, all right. That was clear. Others?
So Randall, if I was coaching you, I would ask you what your mission is. Here's why I say that. Some of you may know that I most recently got into urban historic preservation with the acquisition of the former mansion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That house was built in 1902 by a man named William French Burroughs, who was the founder of Libby's Food. He was nation building for his community and his people. So in that house, he would have weekly meetings with other like-minded people who were also nation building. So that brand, Libby's Food, he'd meet with Mr. Goodyear of Goodyear Tire Company. He would meet with Captain Pabst of Pabst Brewery in Milwaukee. He met with Mr. Roby, who was the distributor, I believe, of the Singer sewing machine, and they were nation building. So they were building brands that they believe would build America and build their nation. And so when they did that, that changed what they thought of when it came to succession. So the goal was to either find somebody, and so Mr. French Burroughs inherited the company from his wife's father, Mr. Libby. And then he hooked up the Oscars and the Myers, and they were meat packers, but they were nation building. So if we are nation building, and we're saying that we want to be free as a people, we want to do for self, we want to have our own economic development, I think that changes the game. So if your business is part of a nation building process, that's going to change your plan.
I see you. You got deep. Okay, all right. That was clear. Others?
So I'm giving you some advice, right?
That's right. And 200 of my friends.
I'm talking to you directly, and they're going to be in on
There we go. There you
go. First of all, Randall, you can't sell your business, man. If you sell your business, you sell your data and everything else. Your brand, which is the essence of you represent something for a lot of African Americans who saw you on television, and you did something that all of us was voting for that you would accomplish, and you did it. That was tied to a brand of achievement. For example, Bob Johnson, the BET wasn't really the representation of who he was as a brand, as an individual. So he could sell that. Earl Graves, his whole entire work was around that brand. So there are things that you would do that is an extension of you, but it is not the essence of you. Number one. Number two, I'm gonna take a book from Dr. George, who says that I have to make decisions on what is good for me, my family, and my people. So from a legacy standpoint, that company must be left in the hands of capable people who look like you and me, who understand the struggle of what you did and the continued struggle that they will have to protect moving on in the future. That should be the legacy.
Good. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Clear. That was clear. Dr. Mike?
Yeah, well, I don't know how to follow it with such brilliance, but let me start by saying, if you are a Renaissance man, and I think you are, Shakespeare once said, nothing is either right or wrong, only thinking makes it so. I know both of those fellas personally. We sort of came up in business at the same time.
Break it down.
They're a little older than I am, but nevertheless, at the time, we're all the same age these days. Earl also had I think a Pepsi or Coke distributorship business as well. And so they were diversified. Bob is diversified because he created enough money to allow him and his ex-wife and the other investors like TCI, who took over a third of that money. I mean, there's a lot of considerations that led to selling, and it's not just because the software. There's some other pressures that took place internally. So we have to be careful not to just look at the general picture, but if we really want to understand it, we have to drill down and see what's really going on. Now, from my perspective, and with your children, you lead by example. And I found that my 4 children determined that, I have twins that went to Morehouse and Spelman, and then I had 2 more that went to USC and Pepperdine, but all 4 of them graduated from law school. And as hard as my brother and I worked to build our businesses, one of the things we always made sure of was our babies were going to be protected and be educated. And his 2 sons are lawyers as well. And my point is, as I see them develop, my children developing around me, and they're adults with children and married, that my brother and I had to get to a point recently within the last couple of years that we needed to bifurcate our assets. He needed to take a portion for his estate establishment. I needed to take a portion for my estate establishment. Now, once I did that, then I engaged more of my children to be engaged in my holdings. And as they're engaged in my holdings, they're beginning to see that if these things continue to create a cash flow, and that cash flow is going into resources that they can utilize, then they become committed to establishing a position to do the same thing. So if you lead by example, and if you establish that your children are going to be as educated as you, which may be very difficult because you're the super duper, academics of our times. But the point is, if we educate our children and set the examples, then they will probably find a way to either come in with you or at least be a part of the knowledge of how to transact business and become true entrepreneurs. None of my kids have ever had a job just like their daddy. So instead of getting a check signed by somebody else, we sign the checks. So, Ron, I'm just saying that there's no right or wrong.
Right.
It's just whatever you decide that's in your best interest, and it is best for you just to set the example, and for everyone in here to set the example, to take that upon yourself, to be an influencer, and to set the example for all that come in your path.
All right. It's good advice. I want you all to get your questions ready. I'm going to go to the audience for questions, but I got one more dichotomy to lay out. The last one was Earl Graves, Bob Johnson. This last one is Donald Trump and Bill Gates. Let me play this one out. Donald's like, what are you talking about? So having seen the inner workings of the whole Trump empire myself, I know firsthand that Donald had absolutely no philanthropy whatsoever. He sometimes tried to look like he had philanthropy in order to get the tax benefit, but never created a foundation, never gave a donation, might have given a contribution to politics only for political gain. By comparison, Bill Gates, as you know, as we all know, made billions, became one of the richest people in the world, created the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is now single-handedly the single largest philanthropy on the planet. And Gates, having done that, motivated the likes of a Buffett to then say, you know what, I'm gonna rethink my whole plan. I'm gonna give my Warren Buffett money to the Gates Foundation to add on to Bill's money to amplify his philanthropy. So completely different paths. And if I were to add one more data point, first of all, Sheila Johnson is quietly a billionaire herself, Bob Johnson's ex-wife. Most folks don't know that. Give it out to Sheila Johnson. Give your love to Sheila Johnson. But Jeff Bezos, who got divorced recently, and then his wife, Mackenzie Bezos, quietly became a billionaire. And if you don't know this, Mackenzie Bezos is quietly giving away billions of dollars right now to nonprofits. You know what I'm talking about. And she's doing it without the nonprofit having to submit a grant application, and she's pre-selecting them and then calling them and saying, you get $500,000, you get $500 million as a donation, no strings attached, no reports, nothing. And they just do what they want to do with that money. That's what she's doing. So here's the dichotomy. How are you all thinking about the relationship between wealth and philanthropy, both in the immediate term, while you're making money, and in the long term, the eternity of how you're positioning your efforts to be philanthropic? That's the second dichotomy. Weigh in.
Yeah, that's a good one, and it's extremely loaded. Simply because I could create a foundation for philanthropic work, which eventuates into tax purpose benefits. So your philanthropic work, to me, is really the things that you invest in, that you do with your hands, the things that you are vested in personally. I can always send my money to do certain things. And so the way that I look at this is, there's a certain thing. We have the Johnson Foundation, and we're interested in creating scholarships and helping inner city kids with managing and projecting and also deploying their talents and their gifts. So with that, I'm personally interested in who those kids are. Like you mentioned, McKinley, she intentionally picks, she reads, I read a lot about that, she reads who the person is, who the principal is, and she makes very unique decisions and selections based on what her goal is. And so I think philanthropy should always be something that you're very much interested in. What problem in the world that you are fascinated about, that you have sufficiently gathered enough resources to believe that you can actually move the needle towards some resolve. So I think, to me, that's philanthropy, as opposed to just sending money and not knowing what it's going to do.
Excellent, excellent. Others? Wendy, Dr. Wendy.
So for me, Randall and everyone, I practice what I call conscious entrepreneurship. And I coach people on becoming conscious entrepreneurs. What does that mean? It means that the bottom line, of course, is important. We make no excuses about wanting money and making lots of it. But we also have stakeholders that are other than just the bottom line. And so we have platforms, or I have platforms that are, like I mentioned, the museum that I'm establishing. That's part of my platform. And that's how I diversify my income and my expenses and my spending, because I believe in nation building. So I believe that the work that I do should be not only to extend the prayers and answer the prayers and be an extension of my ancestors, but to deposit into my country and into my nation and into my people, so that I can develop something that's sustainable, that's even bigger than the money. So I believe in having certain platforms. Some people invest in the Humane Society, some people pick different organizations, whatever it is that that person picks, but there has to be other stakeholders other than yourself and your stockholders or your bottom line.
Clear. Thank you, Dr. Wendy.
Interesting. I had a preacher who was, I'm not really sure if he was a true preacher, but he decided that what he wanted to do was to ask for $100,000. This was years ago. And I said, well, let me ask you this. Which is serving the community better? For me to employ 4 people at $25,000 for their family to eat, educate, etc., or give you $100,000? And it was a hard question for him to answer. In fact, he kind of dodged it at that point. But I think philanthropy has to be outside of just, in our world, outside of just money. If a high-level business person like Wendy or any of the folks in this room can come here for 3 days and give of each other, I think that's philanthropy. I think that's giving back. So we don't need white folks' definition of philanthropy. We have to understand what works best for us in our community. We need to frequently utilize our resources to build. And yes, there are times when we have disposable income, and yes, there are situations where we give money, but there's so much of a need to exchange who we are to each other, and it really pays off in the end. It may not be as quantifiable as any of the philanthropists you named. And I have to retreat from one thing I said earlier. I said, and have to take issue with Shakespeare when he said nothing is right or wrong. I think Trump is wrong as hell.
You get no argument from me. My man.
I like how you ended that, Trump. I'm gonna take a different approach to that question and look at philanthropy and kind of connect that further with work. And I'm really big on future of work. Right now, every business should have a philanthropy built in, and that's tied into the word purpose. Every business right now, the future of business has to be defined with purpose. It's to the point that now we have Fortune 5, Fortune 100 companies actually making that a title, Chief Purpose Officer. And mark my words, the Purpose Officer will be replacing the nonprofit arm. So the ability to say that McDonald's has their for-profit and their nonprofit, just give it about 10 years from now, that will all merge into the word purpose. As a business, you're seeing this. Right now, Shell Petroleum is one of our clients. We're ushering them into the next 100 years using this whole metaverse play. Well, green. Sustainability is a big play right there. So they know Shell Corporation, Shell Petroleum knows that the future of their business, because most people don't know some of the negative stories of petroleum itself and what that does to the environment, to say we really want to go ahead and align with green energy, align with sustainability, climate control and all that. I could say that with a big powerhouse company like that, but for the little local store coming from LA, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffle, I'm gonna reference that again. Well, what are they doing in terms of their philanthropy, making sure that that's built into the mix every week when people are going there? Everybody has to start having that mentality, and the awakening really happened with COVID, right? COVID has really opened everything up. So the word philanthropy, the word work, really let's bring that together and tie that in with purpose. And this goes with your statement. I love what you said about mission. Companies having a mission, that's very important. That mission ties in with purpose.
Well said, well said. All right, give a round of applause to the panel. Let me come down and see any questions for the panelists. Let me go over here real quick and let me get the panelists ready. My last parting question for you all is going to be, in one sentence, what do you hope to be your legacy? One sentence. That's going to be what we're going to close on. Here's my first question. Here we go.
So, we can see. So over the last couple of days, I've been talking about my real estate company. But what I haven't mentioned is that it's one of the fastest growing Black real estate tech companies in the country right now. And so with that, of course, and so because it's Black owned, I own about 92% of the company. We haven't officially started raising money yet. And so listening to Mr. Roberts talk about Bob Johnson and how he had other investors who had, positioned him or pushed him to sell the company, I'm getting a whole lot of investor attention right now. We just finished the Techstars Accelerator, and Techstars is one of the largest and most difficult to get into tech startup accelerators in the world.
You got a question here, right?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
So that gave me more visibility than I wanted. So for the panel, how would you suggest that I go about keeping those interlopers, as Dr. Fraser called them, out? Because they're pushing me to take their money and then sell the company in 5 to 7 years.
Thank you. Anyone want to weigh in?
I'll start with that. That's just part of the game, brother. It's real. Business is warfare. And so as you begin to elevate, people are going to come at you. They're going to try to get your business. You're going to lose your anonymity. It's just part of how the system is set up. And you either are going to play the game or you're not. And it's really just that simple. I think that's almost black and white. You're either going to play the game and play chess, or you're going to play checkers. And so, in my opinion, that's just part of the process. That's part of where we are, who we are. You as a black man here in America, you're going to get that.
All right, we've only got a few minutes left. Mike, make it quick. Make it quick, Mike. I'm over here. Make it quick. Go ahead.
I'll add to what you said. One, I hope you have a team. You got some people here. If you don't have a team, you got Dr. George Fraser, you got some of the people here on this panel that can help you in making that decision. The brother on the end had said something that I'm gonna chime in on.
Delano.
The word Delano, exactly. Data. And so based upon that business, the word data is going to play a key role. I'm definitely one who will build business and work to exit, but when we deal with that data and the culture of that, that's another sensitive ground. So it'd be somebody building that business and say, you're going to sell to a Bob Johnson, that's cool on the black hand side. Selling it to him, that's cool on the black hand side. But if it came to the opposite colors or our Chinese friends, that's going to be a little concerning. Data is king.
All right, let me get another question in. Here we go.
Thank you. My name is B. Manuel Sims. I'm the owner of Sweet Granny D's, which is a dessert shop here in the Houston area. It's finger licking good, so look me up, please, and thank you. So my question is, and this is something, I've been in business for a while, and this is something I've been struggling with, and I think about a lot. And it really, I guess, came to kind of a crux when the owner of the Slutty Vegan in Atlanta, she gifted LLCs to a whole graduating class. So I was like, that's wonderful, but my first question is, do they even know what an LLC can do for them? I wonder, is she giving them guidance with that LLC? We know that more businesses fail than succeed. And I'm sure that's exacerbated in the Black community. What can we do? And I'm doing my own little part. I'm gonna starting a course. But what more can we do? And it's great, Dr. Roberts, you talked about your children. It's phenomenal what you've done with your children, but they have access and they have you. And so they have a bit of privilege. If you don't come from that, where do you go? And what can we do? What more can we do? I love your mission building, your building community, your nation building. But what more can we do to ensure that people who do not have that access or that chance or that mentor, what can we do to help them build success, not just start a business, because they all want to have a hustle and then try to grow that hustle. But if they don't know what they don't know, what more can we do to help them succeed?
Invite them to PowerNetworking Conference.
Well, I think that very quickly, what I believe I heard was when you go into a business and you have an idea, you're going to make these widgets and everybody's going to buy them. But before you get them sold or manufactured, you got to crawl back to the beginning of the fundamentals of business, and that is, what is your legal structure? What kind of accounting system are you setting up? Your lawyers, your advisors. So you really want to make sure that you don't just jump out to try to get your vision and idea in place quickly without creating a base, a technical, legal base that all of us in business fundamentally have to go through at the beginning, at the very beginning. So I think that it's a great question, one that we all need to be able to be prepared to say to other people, let's get the fundamentals together. The fundamental business plan requires you to have a pace that has a legal structure and accounting structure behind it.
All right. So we're coming to a close here, folks. Last question for each panelist. One sentence. What do you hope to be your legacy? One sentence. We'll start with Delano, work our way back to Mike. Delano, the floor is yours.
Be the best mentee that Dr. George C. Fraser has ever produced to take on this legacy.
Dr. Wendy.
Randall, that's a tough question because I feel like my legacy is always evolving. I just want God to be pleased with me.
All right. Amen.
I would like at the end, for people to say that the brother did get down when it came to business. And he shared his knowledge as best as he could.
Mike, close us out.
For me, I want to make sure that every black boy, girl globally has the opportunity to expand in the field of space technology, space travel, the business of space. It was once something that, sadly in our culture, we think of it, a dream and that ends at age 10 or ends at age 13. But really right now, I want to make sure that we're really can see beyond age 13 or a teenager and make that really a reality. So democratizing space for all, that's how I want to go out.
All right. Please join me in thanking Mike Johns, Dr. Michael Roberts, Dr. Wendy Muhammad, and Delano A. Johnson for this panel on building legacy businesses. I'm going to turn it back over to our MC, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant.